Where do you start and Mark Goldbridge end? Like, because you said earlier it's like difficult to separate you from both. Obviously, it's not your real name, as you said. But is it a character you portray, or is that how you watch football? And is that you being 100% real? I'm intrigued to know.
I would say that when I'm watching the match, it's 100% real. I think that obviously I've been doing it for a few years now, so it's maybe heightened a little bit just out of familiarity. I mean, every Man United game I watch is on a live stream, which is quite sad in a way, because I like going to United and I like watching the game with mates, but obviously it's become what I do.
So now that's a really good point. You can never go to Old Trafford really to watch the game, or never watch a game with your mates because you're always live streaming.
Well, yeah, this is it. And this is, Twitter's full of trolls, isn't it? And life's full of, people who are just always trying to drag you down. But one of the things is always, he never goes to games. And I'm like, I don't go to games anymore because I do this. Well, I'd just go to a game. Would you? Would you go to a game with when you know 90,000 people are going to be watching you do a watch along? Would you really do that? I tell you what, I'm comfortable with what I do. I will go back to watch Man United. I'll get a season ticket again. I'll go every week when I stop doing this, like I used to go before. But for now, I'd feel guilty as well. And I know people would probably look at that and go, "What do you mean you'd feel guilty?" I'm like, but there's there's tens of thousands of people watching, and they enjoy it.
And also, when you say watching, they are watching solely you.
Yeah, and they're interacting and they enjoy it.
Yeah.
And even like today, coming down to London to do this, we've got a team in Manchester who will cover it. But I know there'll be a lot of people in the chat going, "Where's Mark? Where's Mark?" Because they like that daily fix. And we were the first to do the watch along in the way that everybody does it now.
Yeah,
and
that must make you very proud.
Yeah, and I think in this space, I'm not talking mainstream here. I'm talking YouTube football space. Probably the worst space I've ever worked in relation to, nobody acknowledges anybody. Everyone takes each other's ideas, but ultimately they weren't doing watch-alongs before, and now everybody does them. So, people do it differently, and I'm all for that. The evolution of it. I just sit and do it on my own. Some people have 3 or 4 people start doing it, but ultimately, I don't think we were the first to do it, because I think you could say, what was the Sky thing where they had the 2 fans together?
Yeah, fan zone.
That was. I mean, that was
good. That
was good. But I think we were the first in the sort of YouTube world to do it in a way that was successful. That is now,
and with Man United as well. First, solely on Man United. We know Man United's got a huge audience as well. I wanted to know: does it wind you up when people say you're not a real fan, you never go to games, you're not from Manchester? Does that grind on you? Because a lot of people say that, don't they?
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's because there's still this weird mentality that we have in this country, and it can be for Arsenal fans, Spurs fans, anybody, that if you're not from the area, you're not a real fan, which is incredible, really, because the reason I support Manchester United is because my granddad was obsessed with Duncan Edwards, who was part of the Busby Babes, who was from Dudley, and Sir Bobby Charlton was from the North East. And you could name the top 10 United players, and the vast majority aren't from Manchester, although we've had some good ones. So it's amazing in the modern day, with the Premier League being so diverse, that people still sort of will tap into that you're not from the area. But I suppose it doesn't bother me, because it's just an easy win, isn't it? If you let people bother you, then it's an easy win. I know my story in football, and I know why I'm so passionate about it.
Because you're from around Nottingham. I used to go to Nottingham Forest, so there's a lot of people paint you with that brush that you're actually a Nottingham Forest fan. Obviously, I'm gathering that you're not by that.
No, you're not going to get that reveal.
Where does that stem from, and why do people say that? Just because you went as a kid?
I just was like, I think from the moment my mum and dad separated when I was about 6, we moved in with my mum's mum and dad, and my granddad, who got me into football, was a builder, and he built this massive house sort of on the edge of Nottinghamshire, and it was in the middle of nowhere. And we moved in after mum and dad separated. So, and then my mum was like working and stuff. So I sort of got brought up by my mum and my 2 grandparents. And he was obsessed with football. And he'd have all these videotapes of the Manchester United story and this, that, and the other. But he'd also manage his own teams. So whenever I could, I'd go with him. So I'd be around dressing rooms, the smell of deep heat and all that.
Yeah.
And I'd go to these places like in Nottingham, and there'd be like 10 pitches. And I don't know whether it goes on anymore, because I don't really watch amateur football unless it's my kids. And he'd be managing and I'd be watching with a ball, but then I'd wander off to the next pitch and have a look, and you'd see a team, just because they had a nice kit, and you'd see someone with a number 7 on, and you go, right, he's Brian Robson, and that's that. And in your head, it'd be Man United against Spurs or something like that. Yeah. So I suppose that's where the ability to talk about football on my own comes from. And games like Sabutio, where you're flicking them around, just this commentary in my head, living room football, stuff like that. I've always had this mind where football's just like all consuming, and I just absolutely love it. And then when Mum and Dad separated, my dad's a Chelsea fan, but he'd get us at the weekends, and I think he'd just take me to Forest just because it was like something to do, and he knew I liked
and
football.
Local as well.
Yeah, and obviously it's local. Because you had no internet, you had nothing on the telly. Teletext was your update and match of the day. So I don't think people can even relate to it now, because they'd go, "Why would you go and do that when you could be at home doing that?" So it's different times. Yeah. And I've always looked, Solihull Moors is down the road from me. I've been to watch West Brom, Blues, Villa. I can sit and talk to anybody. I'm sure you're the same about football. Yeah. Doesn't matter who they support, because you've got that common language.
Yeah, because I'm a big Spurs fan, but I live near Dorking, and I go to see Dorking Wanderers a lot, and I got into them through a bunch of amateurs, because I love my YouTube and stuff. So, and it's nice. You go Premier League grounds. I'm always a Spurs fan from day dot, but going to non-league, it gives you just such a different perspective. I mean, you can hear the players talk to each other when they take the corners. I love things like that and stuff. So I get where you're coming from. City Ground's a great ground, by the way, isn't it? I went to uni in Loughborough around there, so I went there quite a bit. Yeah. Brilliant city, brilliant stadium.
I've not been in Nottingham for probably
Careful how much you praise it, though, because then people will think you're not.
I think the last
can't win with this answer.
I think the last time I went to the City Ground was probably about 11.
Right. About 11. Oh, right, that long ago?
Yeah, so I went a few times between probably 8 and 11, and then never went because some of my mates from school are Forest fans, but I was just like, no, I'm a United fan. I don't want to go anymore. And I think from the age of 11, my dad stopped taking me anyway. So I was just like, I'm not going. Why would I go and watch that? Yeah. I'm staying at home with my Sabucho watching teletext.
Yeah, Man United playing Sabucho. How do you react to all I feel like Mark Goldbridge Reacts is a huge thing on I'm going to say the internet. It's not just even restricted to one platform. You see Sidemen doing videos on it. We see memes on it. I mean, how do you react when there's such a focus on you watching football from a huge amount of people, positively and negatively? How do you react when you see your videos go so viral?
I don't really notice it now, because I think it's just, I have got no idea about TikTok. I leave that to my kids. Right. And my daughter will go. There was this clip the other day, actually, and she was like, "You're getting absolutely rinsed on TikTok." And I was like, "What are you on about?" And she was like, "Yeah, they did this thing at the start of the Sidemen game. What are you doing?" And I'm like, "What are you on about?" So she showed it me, and they're all going like this. Yeah. And she says, that is a thing. It's a sign. You're pointing to the sign behind you like you're pointing to a sign. I said, well, I thought that's what they meant. So they said to me outside the tunnel, can you just stand and point? Yeah. And look like, a bit moody. Yeah. So I was like, what do you want me to point at? And they said, well, it doesn't matter. So I looked behind and there was a Sidemen sign. So I was just like that. And this is like a meme on TikTok now where they've got like Harry and everyone else doing 3 or 4 looking really cool. And then it goes to me going, I don't know, do I? So I avoid TikTok. But like there was an Agadoo thing on TikTok about a year ago.
I think I saw this. Yeah.
Well, a lot of kids thought I'd invented Agadoo, which I loved. I absolutely loved that. I mean, it's not great for it. You can tell you're getting old, but I was like, no. And my daughter again was like, everyone thinks you've invented Agadoo.
So that's because you've gone viral to an Agadoo music track of you moving.
We scored a goal, United, and I went, Agadoo, do. And obviously the kids of today haven't heard Agadoo, so they thought I'd invented Agadoo, which I was like,
invented Agadoo. Yeah. So there will be a generation of people that just think that is you. Yeah. And not whoever wrote Agadoo. Forgive me if I don't know who that is.
There's better songs. I wouldn't mind writing Agadoo.
And the other thing I wanted to ask is how much of what you do is scripted and how much is off the cuff? Because you do come up with some brilliant off the cuff moments when a goal goes in, particularly. Yeah. So do you have script? Do you have it's commentators get asked this a lot.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say that. I mean, if you look at Clive Tilsley or the good Peter Brackley, people like that, Peter Drury, sorry, they have lists and lists of stuff that they want to bring in. I think when I first started it, 100% not, and then you see a few of them go really. Not viral, that's not really what I'm looking for, but that people like them. And I think, well, actually, I might have a think of a few here that I'll try out. But the problem is, it's really hard. I'm not an actor, so it's really hard to naturally bring something you've thought in. And
also, to predict what's going to happen.
It's going to hit. Yeah. So a lot of it's not. I love comedy. And I love Alan Partridge, The Office, Only Fools and Horses, absolutely love it. So I love comedy. And like the mates I had, especially when I was in Dublin, it was just constant back and forth, stuff like that. So it's nice to be able to bring that in. So
it's a big part of your persona.
And that probably, I'd say when I'm doing Mark Goldbridge, I tone it down a lot in real life. And I find that a little bit difficult sometimes I know you and Loz anyway, but like when I go places, I'm always a little bit like, what are they expecting? Because they're not going to
really. So coming here today, then what were your apprehensions? Would you say?
I'm fine here because I've met you before. Yeah. But you know, sometimes you go to Talksport or you go to, you know, a mainstream or an interview, or you go to Sidemen or whatever when I first went, and it's like, what are people actually expecting? Because I've had people say to me in the past, oh, actually, you're all right. I thought you were a knobhead. And it's like, I suppose that's what everybody does, but it's like, I'm not that. You can't be that person.
Does that frustrate you when people say that to you?
Yeah, I think one thing my family's always been big on is trust and respect. And I think that I can't understand people who judge people without meeting them. I really don't, because I've met so many people, especially doing this. I've met so many footballers that are my heroes, who actually, I wouldn't say they're knobheads, but they're not. You know, it's a bit disappointing. And then I've met people that you probably never thought anything about, and then you go, what a nice person they are. Ben Foster.
Yeah, you good mates of yours. Go on, talk to me about Ben.
Just such a nice guy.
Yeah.
Such a nice guy. And you know, so nice that I thought, this is an act. And then, you know, we've socialised and stuff like that. It's just such a nice guy. And it's so nice when you meet footballers like that.
Special relationship with him. Sorry to interrupt there. You've got a really special relationship with him. You do his podcast. You regularly on videos together.
Yeah.
So how did that all come about?
Just got invited on his podcast. So there's hope for us. And got invited on his podcast. And actually, it was really funny because I turned up in Leamington, and his manager, Tom, who's a nice guy, came down and said, really sorry, you've driven down all the way down here, but he can't do it.
Wow.
I was fuming. I was like, what? He says, yeah, they had a drug test at Watford and they take the phones off them, so he couldn't message or anything like that. So we only just found out. So then he was like really apologetic the next time we did it. So he probably made a bit of an effort. But no, we just get on. Like, we just get on. Like, and the football side. I like people you can have a bit of banter with.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I did a few shows with Paul Ince, and he was the same. Like, you can have a little bit of banter with them, and, you know, but I have met people where it's just a little bit, they don't want to be there. You know, how long is this going to take? I wouldn't say they're looking down at you, but they're not interested.